Well, everyone, it's Jason from Primetime Aquatics. We're back with Rob from Flip Aquatics. We were talking about quarantining fish, and I was asking you about your process because I don't really know that many people who has to quarantine and care for more fish over the course of a week or a month than you. And you've got a lot of risk if you don't do this right. I mean, you could really, it could be a big mess. And so I wanted you to explain your quarantine process to our wonderful viewers.
Yeah,
and while we're doing that, I'm going to show you the results. I'm going to take you around this fish room, this fish warehouse, and you're going to see some cool stuff, and you've had a lot of success. So please tell us about your quarantine process.
Well, we have a ton of nano fish here, so you guys are going to see some really cool fish, some that I personally love, and Jason filmed a lot of B-roll, so you guys will get to see some cool stuff. And so yeah, our quarantine process, first of all, let me start by saying there's two parts of quarantine. The first and most important part of quarantine is acclimation. If you have a bad acclimation process, you will never be successful with quarantine. And so we did a whole video on that.
We did.
I'm sure Jason will link it down below. You guys can check that video out. But acclimation is 50% of the equation. Quarantine is the other 50%. And unfortunately, there aren't more companies out there that do quarantine, which is, you know, it's a long process. It takes a lot of work, and you know, you're basically holding fish that have a dollar value, and you potentially could watch them just dwindle away. And so a lot of companies are just quick to get their investment back. But one thing when I started off in the hobby is I always wanted to set the standard for animal care, and we want to look at every fish as an actual animal, a pet, rather than just a dollar. And so one thing that we do here is our quarantine process that I feel like is top notch, and I want to just kind of walk through that with you guys and explain to you what we do. So like I said, first part is acclimation. We bring them in, we make sure we acclimate them properly, and then day one, they've been in the tank for 12 hours. Usually we let them rest overnight. Day one, we're going in there and we test the ammonia, we test the nitrate, we test the nitrate, and we test the pH. So we're testing 4 things just to ensure nothing is out of whack. And we do that for a solid week. So 7 days, we go through, we test all those, and it will show us if we're having a spike in ammonia, if the cycle is working, because one thing we use here is live bacteria, because there's no way to have a cycled aquarium when you're bringing in, you know, I think every week we bring in roughly about 1,000 to 2,000 fish every single week. And so there's no way that we can go from 0 fish to, 300 fish in a tank, and that tank be ready for that amount of fish. So we're using, you use Turbo Start too, right?
Turbo Start and the Fritzheim 7 for, if you've got a smaller community tank that you're just getting started, the Fritzheim 7 is perfectly acceptable. Turbo Start for the types of volumes you're looking at. But these are both live nitrifying bacteria, which is going to allow you to go from ammonia to nitrite, nitrite to nitrate, and not have those ammonia and nitrite spikes that will wipe out fish in a very, very short order.
Yeah, so that's a game changer for us, because the cycle is everything when you first get in fish. Even if you have a cycled aquarium, when you go from 3 fish to 10 fish, like, it might not be enough bacteria to really nitrify that ammonia. And so you always want to add a live bacteria. So that is step 1 for us. So we're testing those parameters to ensure that our bacteria load is good. We're being able to nitrify, the whole nitrogen cycle. And so that's step 1. Make sure that you have a cycled aquarium. The next thing is actually inspecting the fish. We check them, every day, so many times, just to ensure in that first week, if we're seeing anything pop up, they have shrunken bellies, they have ick, anything like that, we're gonna treat with a bunch of different medicine. Our main medicine is Ick X. Next thing we use is General Cure. That's a really good one. Fritz also has Expel P, which we use that. The next thing we use is Maricin and Maricin 2. That's for your bacterial type things. Now know, if you're gonna use Maricin, Maricin 2, it will kill your nitrifying bacteria, so you will need something like Turbo Start, so it's super important. The next big product that we actually use ACCR, which I think you use Fritz Complete. Right? Yep. So we use ACCR because you really can't overdose it. It's such a mild dechlorinator. It gets rid of the ammonia. So if we are seeing spikes in our ammonia, maybe while we're treating Maricin, Maricin 2, and that live bacteria is dying, and we see a spike in ammonia because of deaths, we're able to hit it with ACCR, which neutralizes that. And so that first week, we're really like, let's get these guys stable. Let's make a stable environment. So in the first week, we actually start all aquariums with tannin-rich water. So we're using alder cones, and that's part of the acclimation process, Indian almond leaves, things like that. So we have that tannin-rich water. So we're doing water changes every day, sometimes every other day, just depending, but say every day just to be safe. And we just do a little trickle through water system. So we have an overflow in the back, water flows from one side of the aquarium out the other one. And our goal is over the first week is to get all that tannins out there so we can actually see the fish. And then our second week of quarantine is really ensuring their health. Like hit them with everything if they need it, whether it's internal parasites, external parasites, bacteria problems, fin rot, things like that, ick, we can really treat that. And then we really go into feeding them heavy. So we hit them with flake food / ground up Northfin food in the mornings. So as soon as we get here, they're hungriest in the mornings, we hit them with that. And then at night when they're already full, we give them what they really like, which is live baby brine, Daphnia, blackworms, and really get them fat, because our goal is after 2 weeks, we want to know whether they're healthy or not. So if they're eating good, then we know they're doing good. If they're fat, then we know they're great. And so we at least quarantine for 2 weeks. If we are seeing recurring deaths, if we're seeing any issues, we'll actually keep them longer. We have some fish like we've had for 3 months, because we're never going to compromise the fish, because we want the fish to arrive alive, not just for you, but again, we're dealing with animals here. So we want our animals to be healthy. We want them to ship, you know, the best way possible. And then the last step of our quarantine process is actually our shipping, which sounds funny, but one thing we'll never do, at least, quote me on this, because we should never do anything other than this, ship overnight only. Now the reason for that is if I said, hey, you and 2 buddies, or you and 6 buddies, you guys got to pack into a van and you got to drive across the country, and you're going to be in the van for 3 days, and you have all the water you want, but you have no bathroom, you have no food. Like, how are you going to feel after 3 days? You're going to be stressed, you're going to be sick, you're going to be hungry. Like, there's so many things going wrong. You're going to the bathroom all over the place. So that is the same thing that's happening for these fish. So we spend so much time, so much money to ensure our fish are healthy, alive, doing well, parasite-free, disease-free, all that stuff. Last thing we want to do is send them 3 days in the mail to get to you with egg. Like, that's just not what we want to do. So those are the kind of the keys: the acclimation, the quarantine, and the shipping. Those are 3 things you can do to ensure that your fish will get to you alive and be successful in your aquarium.
Now, question.
Yes.
Do you treat the fish upon arrival, or do you wait to see whether or not they need the medication?
So we give them 12 hours at least before we do anything, and that's just stability. You want to give them the least amount of stress in the first 12 hours just to make sure they're going to be healthy. And then from there, we treat them only if they need it. So a lot of people preemptively treat, and there are things we preemptively treat. So any corridors that we buy, no matter what, gets hit with ick medicine, parasite medicine, and bacteria medicine, no matter what. It's a 7-day, the first 7 days they're here, they get hit with all 3 of those medications for those 7 days. And the reason being is corridors historically have the worst time traveling out of any fish that we import. So we hit them day 1, and then after 7 days, we kind of see where we're at. Everything else is case by case. So usually in the first 2 weeks, every fish that we import gets treated with something, because there's always something going wrong. Mostly it's parasites, so almost everything gets general cure or expel P. And then from there, it's just dependent on what we see. That's a good question. Yeah.
Now, for you at home, what that means is, I think you've made a really great case. When you get fish, whether it's a pet store, wherever, even from Flip Aquatics, you should still be quarantining your fish. Now, 100%. I advocate for a home aquarium. What I personally do is I do 4 weeks. Now, that's different from wholesale, that's different from a pet store, that's different from a business that there's no way you can make a business model buying fish, holding them for an entire month. I don't know any business that would do that. Yeah. 2 weeks is absolutely, I mean, the fact that you quarantine for 2 weeks is phenomenal. That is something that all of you should be looking for. You should be asking your pet stores, how long have these fish been here? Because a lot of pet stores, customers come in and it's like, oh, Tuesday's delivery day, they're getting their fish in, and Tuesday afternoon you're buying those fish. Well, no, that those fish might have made a couple of jumps from importer to wholesaler. They just got to the pet store, you're buying them, and none of those facilities have most likely quarantined the fish.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're doing that for 2 weeks is huge. That should help put your mind at ease. At home, have a separate quarantine tank. I know it's kind of a pain, might be a little bit of expensive, might not have the space, but trust me, you have a nice planted community tank and you throw your fish in there, and you haven't done the things that we've talked about here, it's a lot bigger pain to try to treat that larger volume, and now you've got invertebrates, you can't use half the meds. So
let me advocate for, advocate, that's the right word. Let me advocate for quarantine. So 2 weeks for fish. The reason we chose to do that is because in 2 weeks, you can tell whether the ammonia burn that they got during shipping will kill them, not kill them, they're healthy, they're not healthy. So 2 weeks is the minimum that I would quarantine a fish, just because most of the time you're importing fish, they're coming in large volumes, there is ammonia in that bag. No matter what you say, there's gonna be ammonia in that bag. And so we wanna make sure that our fish aren't gonna die from the ammonia burn, so 2 weeks is the minimum we hold them. For shrimp, we do 30 days, so 4 weeks basically, a little over 4 weeks. And the reason for that is most shrimp will molt within the next 30 days. Every time you import, you buy, get new shrimp in the mail, you're gonna see there's molts in that bag. Sometimes you'll get buried once because they molded in the bag and they bred in the bag. But literally what that's telling you is stress induces molting, which if a shrimp molts early, their next molt is gonna be the hardest one on that shrimp. So we always hold our shrimp for 30 days to ensure they survive their next molt. And if they survive their next molt, we know they're healthy enough, we know they're gonna do good. And so those are why we chose those 2 dates. So 2 weeks for fish, 4 weeks for shrimp. That's what I would recommend. If there's people out there that are selling fish and shrimp and not doing a quarantine, then I would always be very cautious of buying from them, just because you're getting fish that aren't as healthy, that have gone through a lot more stress, and it's gonna be a lot harder for you guys to be successful at home.
Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your quarantine process. And again, it's just something for you to think about at home. How are you doing that? Address it. We have another video we've done on quarantine. I'll put that in the description below. Appreciate you being here. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next video.
See you.